Welcome. You are about to take a journey through the entire English language, from your very first sentence to the kind of grammar that makes even native speakers stop and think. This is not a collection of rules to memorize. This is a guide to the way English actually works, how it breathes, how it moves, and why it says things the way it does. Whether you are a complete beginner who has never studied English before, or someone who has been studying for years and still feels something is missing, this course is designed exactly for you. By the time this lesson is over, you will understand grammar at every level, from the simplest present tense sentence to the most sophisticated structures used in academic writing, literature, and professional speech. There are 6 parts to this course. Each part builds on the one before it. The levels are A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, and C2. These are international levels used to measure English ability around the world. A1 is the starting point. C2 is the highest level a learner can reach. We will move through all of them, step by step, with clear explanations, real examples, and the kind of insights that textbooks rarely give you. Do not rush. Let each section settle before you move on. Pause when you need to. Replay what you did not catch. The goal is understanding, not speed. Let us begin. Part 1. A1. The foundation. Before you can build a house, you need a foundation. In English grammar, the foundation is simple, honest, and incredibly powerful. At the A1 level, you are learning how English is structured at its most basic. These are not small lessons. These are the bones of the language. The verb to be. The single most important verb in the English language is to be. It connects a subject to a description, a state, or an identity. You will use this verb every single day for the rest of your life, so let us understand it completely. In the present tense, the verb to be has 3 forms. They are, is, am, and are. We say, I am. We say, he is, she is, it is. We say, you are, we are, they are. Let us look at how this sounds in real sentences. I am a student. She is from Mexico. They are happy. It is cold outside. We are ready. You will notice that the verb to be does not describe an action. It describes a state. It describes what something is, not what something does. That is the key difference. To be tells us about identity, location, feeling, and quality. Now, to make a sentence negative with to be, we simply add the word not after the verb. I am not tired. He is not here. They are not my friends. In spoken English, we almost always use contractions. A contraction combines 2 words into one shorter form. I am becomes I'm. He is becomes he's. She is becomes she's. It is becomes its. You are becomes your. We are becomes we're. They are becomes their. For negatives, is not becomes isn't. Are not becomes aren't. Am not is a special case. In questions and short answers, we say aren't I, but in statements, we say I am not. To ask a question with to be, we simply move the verb before the subject. Is she at home? Are you ready? Am I late? Is it raining? Notice how natural this feels. The structure never changes. Move the verb to the front, and you have a question. Practice this in your head right now. Take a simple statement, like he is a teacher. Now ask the question, is he a teacher? Take the statement they are from Brazil. Ask the question, are they from Brazil? This is the foundation of English questions, and it starts right here. Articles a, an, and the. Every English learner needs to understand articles. They are small words, but they carry enormous meaning. The 2 types are indefinite articles and definite articles. The indefinite articles are a and an. The definite article is the. We use a or an when we are talking about something for the first time, or when the listener does not know which specific thing we mean. I saw a dog in the park. I ate an apple this morning. She bought a car last week. The difference between a and an is about sound, not spelling. We use an before words that begin with a vowel sound. We use a before words that begin with a consonant sound. An apple, an umbrella, an hour. Notice that hour begins with the letter H, but the H is silent. The word sounds like it begins with a vowel sound, so we use an. A book, a university, a European city. The word university begins with the letter U, but the sound is like the consonant Y, so we use a. We use the when we are talking about something specific, something that both the speaker and the listener already know. I saw a dog in the park. The dog was very friendly. First mention, we use a. Second mention, we use the, because now we both know which dog we mean. The is also used when there is only one of something in the world, or when context makes the reference obvious. The sun, the moon, the president, the sky. There are many rules about articles, and we will go deeper at higher levels. But for now, remember this simple principle. Use a or an for general, new, or unspecified things. Use the for specific, known, or unique things. Nouns and plurals. A noun is a word that names something. It names a person, a place, a thing, or an idea. Person nouns include words like teacher, child, friend, man, woman, doctor, and student. Place nouns include words like city, school, hospital, park, country, and street. Thing nouns include words like book, phone, water, car, music, and money. Idea nouns include words like love, freedom, time, and happiness. In English, most nouns become plural by adding the letter S. One book, two books. One teacher, three teachers. One student, many students. When a noun ends in S, sh, ch, x, or z, we add es to form the plural. One bus, two buses. One dish, three dishes. One church, two churches. One box, four boxes. Some nouns have irregular plural forms that you need to learn individually. Man becomes men. Woman becomes women. Child becomes children. Person becomes people. Mouse becomes mice. Tooth becomes teeth. Foot becomes feet. Goose becomes geese. Some nouns do not change at all in their plural form. One sheep, two sheep. One fish, two fish. One deer, three deer. And some nouns are only ever used in the singular: information, furniture, advice, news. These are called uncountable nouns because we cannot count individual pieces of them. We cannot say one information or two advices. We say some information or a piece of advice. Subject pronouns and object pronouns. Pronouns replace nouns. Instead of repeating a noun every time, we use a shorter word that refers to it. The subject pronouns are the ones that perform the action in a sentence. They are I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. I speak English. You are my student. He lives in London. She loves music. It is raining. We are learning grammar. They went home early. The object pronouns are the ones that receive the action. They are me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. She called me. I saw him at the store. The teacher told us to wait. He helped them with their homework. I like her very much. Notice that you and it are the same in both subject and object form. A common mistake at this level is using subject pronouns where object pronouns belong. Incorrect. She gave the book to I. Correct. She gave the book to me. Incorrect. They invited he and I to dinner. Correct. They invited him and me to dinner. Ha, ha. The rule is simple. After verbs and after prepositions like to, for, with, and about, always use object pronouns. The present simple tense. The present simple tense is the backbone of everyday English. We use it to talk about things that are generally true, things that happen regularly, and facts. I eat breakfast every morning. She works at a hospital. They speak 3 languages. The earth moves around the sun. The structure is simple. For most subjects, the verb stays in its base form. I eat, you eat, we eat, they eat. But when the subject is he, she, or it, we add s to the verb. He eats, she works. It opens at 9. When the verb ends in s, sh, ch, x, or z, we add es. He watches television. She teaches English. It matches my shirt. When the verb ends in a consonant plus y, we change the y to I and add es. She studies every night. He carries the bag. To make a present simple sentence negative, we use do not or does not. I do not eat meat. She does not like cold weather. They do not understand the question. In spoken English, we contract these. I don't, she doesn't, they don't. To ask a present simple question, we use do or does before the subject. Do you speak English? Does she live here? Do they work together? Notice something important. When we use does in a question or negative, the main verb goes back to its base form. We do not say, does she works? We say, does she work? The s moves to the helping verb does, and the main verb returns to its base form. This is one of the most common mistakes English learners make, and understanding it now will save you years of confusion. Have and have got. We use have and have got to talk about possession. These 2 forms mean the same thing, but they are used slightly differently. Have is used more commonly in American English and in formal writing. Have got is more common in British English and in formal conversation. I have a car. I have got a car. They mean the same thing. She has a brother. She has got a brother. Again, the same meaning. Notice that with have, the third person singular is has. He has, she has, it has. To make a negative with have, we use do not have or does not have. I do not have a pet. She does not have any money. With have got in the negative, we use have not got or hasn't got. I haven't got a pet. She hasn't got any money. For questions with have, we use do or does. Do you have a minute? Does he have a pen? With have got, we move have or has before the subject. Have you got a minute? Has he got a pen? At this level, focus on have and does not have. These will serve you well in almost every context. Basic adjectives and adverbs. Adjectives describe nouns. They tell us more about what something is like. A big house, a beautiful city, a cold drink, an interesting book, an old car. In English, adjectives go before the noun they describe. We do not say a house big. We say a big house. This is different from many other languages, and it is important to remember. Adjectives can also appear after the verb to be. The house is big. The city is beautiful. The weather is cold. When we want to describe how something is done, we use adverbs. Most adverbs are formed by adding lie to the adjective. Quick becomes quickly. Slow becomes slowly. Careful becomes carefully. Beautiful becomes beautifully. Easy becomes easily. However, some adverbs are irregular. Good becomes well. Fast stays fast. Hard stays hard. Early stays early. Late stays late. She speaks English well. He runs fast. They work hard. She arrived early. Basic questions: who, what, where, when, why, how. At the A1 level, you need to know the 6 basic question words. These are the foundation of all questioning in English. Who asks about a person? Who is your teacher? Who called you last night? What asks about a thing or an idea? What is your name? What do you eat for breakfast? Where asks about a place? Where do you live? Where is the nearest station? When asks about a time? When is your birthday? When does the class start? Why asks about a reason? Why are you late? Why do you want to learn English? How asks about the way something is done or the condition of something. How do you get to work? How are you? Practice constructing questions with each of these words until they feel completely natural. They are the gateway to every conversation you will ever have in English. Numbers, time, and dates. At a 1, you need to be able to talk about numbers, tell the time, and talk about dates. Cardinal numbers are the ones we use for counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Then 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. After 20, we combine 21, 22, and so on until 30. Then 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. Ordinal numbers are the ones we use for order. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th. Then 11th, 12th, 13th, and so on. We use ordinal numbers for dates. The 1st of January, the 3rd of March, the 25th of December. For telling the time, we say the hour, followed by the minutes. It is 3:15. It is 7:45. It is 12:05. We also use past and to. 10 past 6 means 6:10. Quarter past 8 means 8:15. Half past 9 means 9:30. 10 to 7 means 6:50. We use the phrases in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, and at night to specify parts of the day. I wake up at 7 in the morning. She finishes work at 5 in the afternoon. We eat dinner at 8 in the evening. That completes part 1. At this point, you understand the verb to be, articles, basic nouns and plurals, pronouns, the present simple tense, adjectives and adverbs, question words, and how to talk about numbers and time. These are the absolute foundations. Everything we build from this point forward sits on top of what you have just learned. Part 2. A2 building blocks. At the A2 level, the English language starts to expand in every direction. You move from talking about the present to talking about the past and the future. You start connecting ideas in more complex ways. Your sentences become longer and more expressive. The past simple tense. The past simple tense is how we talk about completed actions in the past, things that happened and are now finished. I walked to school this morning. She cooked dinner last night. They visited Paris last summer. For regular verbs, we form the past simple by adding ed to the base verb. Walk becomes walked. Cook becomes cooked. Visit becomes visited. Talk becomes talked. Want becomes wanted. When a verb ends in e, we just add d. Like becomes liked. Live becomes lived. Love becomes loved. When a verb ends in a consonant plus y, we change the y to I and add ed. Study becomes studied. Carry becomes carried. When a short verb ends in a single vowel plus a consonant, we double the final consonant before adding ed. Stop becomes stopped. Plan becomes planned. Drop becomes dropped. However, many of the most common English verbs are irregular. These verbs do not follow the regular pattern. You need to learn them. Go becomes went. Come becomes came. See becomes saw. Take becomes took. Give becomes gave. Make becomes made. Get becomes got. Have becomes had. Do becomes did. Say becomes said. Think becomes thought. Know becomes knew. Feel becomes felt. Leave becomes left. Buy becomes bought. Bring becomes brought. Find becomes found. Tell becomes told. Put becomes put. Read becomes read. The spelling stays the same, but the pronunciation changes from read to read. To make a past simple sentence negative, we use did not with the base form of the verb. I did not go to the party. She did not call me. They did not understand the question. In spoken English, we contract did not to didn't. I didn't go. She didn't call. They didn't understand. To ask a question in the past simple, we use did before the subject, again with the base form. Did you see the film? Did she arrive on time? Did they enjoy the concert? This is the same pattern as the present simple with do, but now we use did because we are in the past. And again, the main verb always returns to its base form when we use did. The future tense will and going to. English has two main ways to talk about the future. The first is will, and the second is going to. We use will for predictions, decisions made in the moment, promises, and offers. I think it will rain tomorrow. That prediction comes spontaneously. It will be a great day. I will help you with that. I decided just now. I will call you later. The structure is simple. Subject plus will plus the base form of the verb. I will go, she will come. They will arrive at noon. For negatives, we use will not, which contracts to won't. I won't be late. She won't forget. They won't stay long. For questions, we move will before the subject. Will you be there? Will she join us? Will they finish in time? We use going to for plans that were made before the moment of speaking and for predictions based on evidence we can see right now. I am going to visit my grandmother this weekend. That was planned before. Look at those clouds. It is going to rain. We can see the evidence. The structure is subject plus am, is, or are, plus going to, plus the base form. I am going to study tonight. He is going to start a new job. They are going to move to another city. In spoken English, going to is very often reduced to gonna. I'm going to call you. He's going to be fine. But in writing, always use going to. The difference between will and going to is subtle, and even native speakers sometimes use them interchangeably. At this level, focus on the basic principle. Will for spontaneous and future in general. Going to for plans and visible predictions. Prepositions of time and place. Prepositions are small words that show relationships. At the A2 level, the most important ones are the prepositions of time and place. For time, the most important three are at, on, and in. We use at for specific times, at 7 o'clock, at noon, at midnight, at breakfast. We use on for days and dates. On Monday, on the 5th of June, on my birthday, on New Year's Day, on. We use in for longer periods, in the morning, in January, in summer, in 2019, in the 20th century. There is a useful way to remember this. Think of a funnel from wide to narrow. In for the widest, longest periods of time. On for days and dates, which are narrower. At for specific points in time, the narrowest of all. For place, the most important prepositions are at, on, in, next to, between, behind, in front of, opposite, near, and under. We use in for enclosed spaces or areas. In the room, in the city, in my pocket, in the car. We use at for specific points or locations. At the station, at the door, at the top, at school, at work, at home. We use on for surfaces. On the table, on the wall, on the floor, on the second floor. Next to means beside. The bank is next to the supermarket. Between means in the middle of two things. The cafe is between the bookshop and the cinema. Behind means at the back. In front of means at the front. Opposite means directly facing. Under means below. These prepositions appear in thousands of phrases, and learning them with their context, rather than in isolation, is the best approach. Conjunctions, connecting ideas. At A1, sentences were short and simple. At A2, we begin to connect ideas using conjunctions. And connects two positive ideas. I like coffee and tea. She studies hard and gets good grades. But connects a contrast. I like coffee, but I don't like tea. He works hard, but he doesn't earn much. Or connects alternatives. Do you want tea or coffee? You can come with us. Or you can stay here. So expresses a result. I was tired, so I went to bed early. She studied every day, so she passed the exam. Because gives a reason. I stayed home because I was sick. She failed because she didn't study. Although and even though introduce a contrast or surprise. Although it was raining, we went for a walk. Even though he was tired, he kept working. He has 10 e. When we use conjunctions to connect two independent clauses, we usually put a comma before the conjunction. But when the conjunction introduces a reason or condition at the beginning of the sentence, we put a comma after that opening clause. Because I was sick, I stayed home. Although it was raining, we still went. The comma changes position, but the meaning stays the same. Comparatives and superlatives. One of the most satisfying tools at the A2 level is the ability to compare things. English does this with comparative and superlative adjectives. For short adjectives, usually one syllable, we add a to form the comparative and est to form the superlative. Old becomes older and oldest. Tall becomes taller and tallest. Fast becomes faster and fastest. Cold becomes colder and coldest. When a short adjective ends in e, we just add r, and saint. Wide becomes wider and widest. Nice becomes nicer and nicest. When a short adjective ends in a single vowel plus a consonant, we double the final consonant. Big becomes bigger and biggest. Hot becomes hotter and hottest. Thin becomes thinner and thinnest. For adjectives ending in y, we change the y to I and add or est. Happy becomes happier and happiest. Lazy becomes lazier and laziest. Pretty becomes prettier and prettiest. For longer adjectives, usually two or more syllables, we use more for the comparative and most for the superlative. Beautiful becomes more beautiful and most beautiful. Interesting becomes more interesting and most interesting. Expensive becomes more expensive and most expensive. Important becomes more important and most important. Some adjectives are completely irregular. Good becomes better and best. Bad becomes worse and worst. Far becomes farther and farthest, or further and furthest. Little becomes less and least. Much and many both become more and most. When we make a comparison between two things, we use than. She is taller than her brother. This phone is more expensive than the other one. Today is hotter than yesterday. When we use a superlative, we usually use the before it. This is the best coffee I have ever had. He is the tallest person in the class. She is the most intelligent student in the school. There is one more important comparison structure. To say two things are equal, we use as plus adjective plus as. He is as tall as his father. The film was not as good as I expected. She runs as fast as a professional athlete. Modal verbs can, could, should, and must. Modal verbs are special auxiliary verbs that add meaning to the main verb. At the A2 level, the most important ones to know are can, could, should, and must. Can expresses ability or permission in the present. I can swim. She can speak 4 languages. Can I use your phone? Could is the past form of can. It expresses ability or possibility in the past. It is also used to make polite requests. When I was a child, I could run very fast. Could you help me with this? Could you open the window, please? Should expresses advice and recommendation. You should drink more water. She should study harder. We should leave early to avoid traffic. Must expresses strong necessity or obligation. It can also express logical certainty. You must wear a seatbelt in a car. She must be at home. Her lights are on. After all modal verbs, the main verb always stays in the base form. We never say, she can swims or you must eats. Always base form. She can swim, you must eat. To make a modal verb negative, we simply add not after the modal. You should not eat so much sugar. You shouldn't eat so much sugar. He cannot come today. He can't come today. She must not be late again. She mustn't be late again. Notice that cannot is usually written as one word, not two. Possessives, showing ownership. English shows ownership in 2 main ways. The first is with possessive adjectives. The second is with the apostrophe s. Possessive adjectives are my, your, his, her, its, our, and their. They go before a noun. This is my book. Where's your phone? He forgot his keys. She loves her cat. The company increased its prices. We finished our homework. They sold their house. The apostrophe s structure adds ownership directly to the noun. This is Sarah's car. The teacher's desk is at the front. My brother's friend is very funny. The dog's name is Max. When the noun is already plural and ends in s, we just add the apostrophe after the s. The students' books are on the shelf. The teacher's meeting was canceled. There is a very important distinction to remember. The apostrophe s shows possession. The word its without an apostrophe is the possessive adjective. Its with an apostrophe is a contraction of it is. These 2 words confuse even native English speakers. The dog wagged its tail. Correct possessive. It's a beautiful day. Correct contraction of it is. If you are unsure, try replacing its or its in your sentence with it is. If the sentence still makes sense, use the contraction its. If it does not make sense, use the possessive its. That completes part 2. You now have the tools to talk about the past, the future, to compare things, to show ownership, and to connect ideas. Your English is beginning to take real shape. Part 3. B1. Gaining confidence. At the B1 level, something fundamental begins to shift. Grammar becomes less about rules you have to remember and more about choices you can make. You start to have options for how to express the same idea, and choosing between them is what separates a basic speaker from a confident one. The present perfect tense. The present perfect is one of the most distinctive features of English, and it is one that learners find challenging. But if you understand the core idea behind it, everything else follows naturally. The present perfect connects the past to the present. It describes something that happened in the past, but has a connection, result, or relevance to right now. The structure is have or has plus the past participle of the verb. I have finished my homework. She has eaten already. They have just arrived. The past participle of regular verbs is the same as the past simple, walked, cooked, studied. But irregular verbs have their own past participle forms that you need to learn. Go, went, gone, come, came, come, see, saw, seen, take, took, taken, give, gave, given, make, made, made. Get, got, or gotten in American English. Have, had, do, did, done, say, said, think, thought, know, knew, known. Feel, felt, felt, write, wrote, written, speak, spoke, spoken, break, broke, broken, choose, chose, chosen, drive, drove, driven, eat, ate, eaten, fall, fell, fallen, forget, forgot, forgotten, grow, grew, grown, hide, hid, hidden, ride, rode, ridden, shake, shook, shaken, steal, stole, stolen, swim, swam, swum, throw, threw, thrown, wake, woke, woken, wear, wore, worn, win, won, won, begin, began, begun, drink, drank, drunk, ring, rang, run, run, ran, run, sing, sang, sung, sink, sank, sunk, spring, sprang, sprung. We use the present perfect in four main situations. First, for experiences in life, when the exact time is not important or not mentioned. I have been to Japan. She has tried sushi before. They have never seen snow. Second, for recent actions where the result is relevant now. I have lost my keys. She has broken her arm. The train has just left. Third, with the words just, already, and yet. I have just finished. She has already left. Have you done it yet? Fourth, for actions or states that started in the past and continue now, especially with for and since. I have lived here for 10 years. She has worked at this company since 2015. The key to understanding the present perfect is this. When you use it, you are not just reporting a past event. You are saying that this past event is connected to the present moment in some way. Present perfect versus past simple. Many learners struggle with knowing when to use the present perfect and when to use the past simple. Here is the clearest way to see the difference. The past simple is used when we know when something happened, or when we are thinking of the event as completely finished and separated from now. I went to Japan in 2018. She called me yesterday. They finished the project last week. The present perfect is used when we are not giving a specific time, or when the connection to now matters. I have been to Japan. This is a life experience. No specific time. She has called me. This is recent and relevant. They have finished the project. The result matters now. Certain time expressions signal the past simple. Yesterday, last week, last year, in 2010, 3 days ago, at 6 o'clock, when I was young. Other time expressions signal the present perfect. Just, already, yet, recently, ever, never, so far, up to now, how long, for, since. When you see already, say it with the present perfect. She has already eaten. When you see ago, use the past simple. She ate 2 hours ago. The past continuous tense. The past continuous is used to describe an action that was in progress at a specific moment in the past. It paints a background picture. The structure is was or were plus the present participle, which is the verb, plus ing. I was reading when she called. They were having dinner when we arrived. She was sleeping at midnight. The most common use of the past continuous is in combination with the past simple. The past continuous describes the background action that was already in progress. The past simple describes the shorter action that interrupted it. I was walking to school when I saw an accident. She was sleeping when the phone rang. He was cooking dinner when the electricity went out. The past continuous can also describe 2 longer actions happening at the same time in the past. While she was studying, he was watching television. While I was reading, the children were playing outside. We also use the past continuous for temporary situations in the past. I was living in Paris for a few months back then. She was working as a waitress while she was studying. The future continuous tense. The future continuous is used to describe an action that will be in progress at a specific moment in the future. It is the future version of the past continuous idea. The structure is will be plus the verb plus ing. This time next week, I will be flying to New York. At 3 o'clock tomorrow, she will be taking her exam. By the time you get home, I will be cooking dinner. We also use the future continuous to ask about plans in a polite and indirect way. Will you be using the car this evening? Will she be attending the meeting tomorrow? This sounds softer and more polite than a direct question, which is why you will hear this structure often in professional settings. Modal verbs expanded must, have to, should, ought to, might, may. At the B1 level, we explore modal verbs with greater depth. The distinctions between them become important for precise communication. Must expresses strong internal obligation or logical deduction. You must submit your application by Friday. Strong external rule. She must be exhausted after working all day. Logical deduction. Have to also expresses obligation, but it often comes from an external source rather than the speaker's own feeling. I have to wear a uniform at work. External rule from employer. He has to take 3 tablets a day. Doctor's instruction. In questions and negatives, must and have to behave differently. Mustn't means you are prohibited. You must not park here means parking is forbidden. Don't have to means there is no obligation. You don't have to come means coming is optional. This is one of the most important distinctions in English modal verbs. Mustn't and don't have to are opposites in meaning. Should and ought to both give advice or express what is expected. They are almost identical in meaning. You should see a doctor. You ought to see a doctor. Both give the same advice. Might and may both express possibility. They are often interchangeable at this level. I might go to the party. There is a possibility she may not come. There is a possibility she will not. May is slightly more formal than might. In speech, might is much more common. Could at this level also expresses possibility, similar to might. It could rain later. That could be the answer. He could be right. The first conditional real conditions. Conditionals are sentences about possibilities and their consequences. There are 4 main types. At the B1 level, we focus on the first conditional. The first conditional talks about real possible conditions and their likely results. The structure is if plus the present simple in the condition clause and will plus the base verb in the result clause. If it rains tomorrow, we will cancel the trip. If you study hard, you will pass the exam. If she calls, I will tell her. The if clause can come first or second. When it comes first, we put a comma between the 2 clauses. When it comes second, we do not need a comma. We will cancel the trip if it rains tomorrow. You will pass the exam if you study hard. A very important rule in conditionals is this. We never use will in the if clause. Even though we are talking about the future, we use the present simple in the condition. We say if it rains, not if it will rain. We can also use other modal verbs in the result clause, may and might, for less certain results. If you study hard, you might pass the exam. There is a possibility, but less certain than will. We can also use imperative verbs in the result clause. If you see her, tell her I called. If you are hungry, help yourself to some food. Gerunds and infinitives. An introduction. This is a topic that challenges many learners, but once you understand the basic principle, it becomes much more manageable. A gerund is the ing form of a verb used as a noun. Swimming is good exercise. Reading is her favorite hobby. I enjoy cooking. An infinitive is to plus the base form of the verb. I want to go. She needs to study. They decided to leave. Some verbs are followed by the gerund, some are followed by the infinitive, and some can be followed by both. Verbs that take the gerund include enjoy, finish, avoid, consider, keep, suggest, practice, risk, and admit. I enjoy reading. She has finished eating. He avoided looking at her. They considered moving to another city. Verbs that take the infinitive include want, need, decide, hope, plan, expect, offer, refuse, promise, and agree. I want to leave. She needs to rest. He decided to stay. They hope to visit next year. Verbs that can take both with little or no change in meaning include begin, start, continue, hate, love, and like. I love to swim. I love swimming. Both are correct. However, remember and forget change, meaning depending on which form follows. I remember locking the door. I remember doing it. It happened first. Then I remembered. I remembered to lock the door. I remembered and then did it. I forgot bringing my umbrella. I forgot that I had it. I forgot to bring my umbrella. I forgot and therefore did not bring it. At the B1 level, focus on learning which common verbs take which form. This is a vocabulary exercise as much as a grammar one. Question tags. Question tags are short questions added to the end of a statement. They invite the listener to agree, disagree, or confirm. The structure is a comma, then a short question using the same auxiliary verb from the main clause with the pronoun subject. If the statement is positive, the question tag is negative. If the statement is negative, the tag is positive. It's a beautiful day, isn't it? She speaks French, doesn't she? They arrived yesterday, didn't they? You've been here before, haven't you? She isn't coming, is she? He doesn't like coffee, does he? They didn't know, did they? You won't be late, will you? When the statement uses a form of to be, the tag uses to be. When it uses an auxiliary like have, will, or can, the tag uses the same auxiliary. When the statement uses a main verb without an auxiliary, the tag uses do, does, or did. The intonation of a question tag tells you what kind of response you expect. When the voice goes down, you are fairly certain and just asking for agreement. When the voice goes up, you are genuinely uncertain and really asking a question. At the B1 level, practice making question tags until they feel natural. They are used constantly in natural spoken English. That concludes Part 3. You now have a solid, confident grasp of English grammar. You can talk about the past, present, and future with sophistication. You understand modal verbs in depth. You can use conditionals, gerunds, infinitives, and question tags. You are building real fluency. Part 4, B2, Thinking in English. At B2, something remarkable happens. You stop translating from your first language into English. Instead, you begin to think directly in English. Grammar becomes a tool for expressing nuance, not just information. The difference between two similar structures is no longer a technicality. It is a real difference in meaning. The present perfect continuous tense. The present perfect continuous is used for actions that started in the past, continued for a period of time, and either just stopped or are still continuing now. The emphasis is on the duration and the process, not just the result. The structure is have or has been plus the verb plus ing. I have been studying for 3 hours. The emphasis is on how long. She has been waiting since 2 o'clock. The emphasis is on the duration. They have been arguing all morning. The emphasis is on the continuous activity. Compare these two sentences. I have read the report. The focus is on the result. The report is finished. I have been reading the report. The focus is on the activity, and it may or may not be finished. We often use the present perfect continuous to explain current situations. She is tired because she has been working all night. The house smells good because I have been baking. I am out of breath because I have been running. The present perfect continuous is not used with state verbs. We do not say, I have been knowing her for years. We say, I have known her for years. The past perfect tense. The past perfect, allows you to go even further back in time. When you are already talking in the past tense and you need to talk about something that happened before that past time, you use the past perfect. The structure is had plus the past participle. When I arrived, the film had already started. The film started before I arrived. Both events are in the past, but one happened first. She was nervous because she had never flown before. First, she had never flown. Then, she was nervous. By the time he got home, his family had gone to bed. First, the family went to bed. Then, he got home. The past perfect is especially important in narrative and storytelling. It clarifies the sequence of events. He realized that he had left his wallet at the restaurant. He picked up the phone that someone had left on the table. She apologized because she had forgotten his name. Notice that the past perfect is not always necessary. If the sequence of events is obvious from the context or from the word order, we sometimes use the past simple for both events. But in more complex sentences, the past perfect is essential for clarity. The second conditional unreal present. The second conditional talks about imaginary, hypothetical, or unlikely situations in the present or future. It is not about something that will probably happen. It is about something that is not true now, or is unlikely to happen. The structure is if plus the past simple in the condition clause, and would plus the base verb in the result clause. If I had more time, I would travel the world. I do not have more time now. This is hypothetical. If she spoke French, she could work in Paris. She does not speak French. This is unreal. If I were you, I would take the job. Notice the use of were. In the second conditional, we use were for all persons, not was. Even with I, he, she, and it, the formal correct form is were. This is called the subjunctive, and we will discuss it more at C1 level. If I were a bird, I would fly to the mountains. If she were here, she would know what to do. In informal spoken English, you will hear people say, if I was. But in formal writing and in examinations, if I were is considered more correct. The second conditional is used for wishes, advice, and imaginary situations. I wish I could speak English perfectly. If only she were here. What would you do if you won the lottery? The third conditional unreal past. The third conditional takes the imagination even further back. It talks about hypothetical situations in the past, things that did not happen. It is often used to speculate about how things might have been different. The structure is if plus the past perfect in the condition clause, and would have plus the past participle in the result clause. If I had studied harder, I would have passed the exam. I did not study hard. I did not pass. Both are in the past, and both are real. But I am imagining a different outcome. If she had called me, I would have helped her. She did not call. I did not help. Imagined, alternative. If they had left earlier, they would not have missed the train. They did not leave early. They missed the train. This is the imagined alternative. The third conditional is the grammar of regret, reflection, and speculation about the past. It is extremely common in natural conversation. If I had known then what I know now, I would have done everything differently. Mixed conditionals. At B2, we begin to mix the conditional types. Mixed conditionals combine a past condition with a present result, or a present condition with a past result. The mixed second and third conditional looks like this: if plus past perfect in the condition, would plus base verb in the result. If I had taken that job offer, I would be living in London now. The condition is in the past. I did not take the offer. The result is in the present. I am not in London. If I had slept earlier last night, I would not be so tired right now. The other type mixes a present condition with a past result. If I were more organized, I would have finished this weeks ago. If she were smarter, she would have realized the truth long ago. Mixed conditionals are used a great deal in sophisticated conversation and writing. Mastering them marks a clear step into advanced fluency. Passive voice. In an active sentence, the subject performs the action. In a passive sentence, the subject receives the action. The chef cooked the meal. Active. The subject, the chef, does the cooking. The meal was cooked by the chef. Passive. The subject, the meal, receives the action. To form the passive, we use the correct form of to be plus the past participle. Present, simple, passive. English is spoken all over the world. The report is written every month. Past, simple, passive. The building was constructed in 1850. Mistakes were made. Future, simple, passive. The decision will be announced tomorrow. The results will be published next week. Present, continuous, passive. The bridge is being repaired. The emails are being sent. Present, perfect, passive. The letter has been signed. 3 employees have been promoted. Past, perfect, passive. The contract had been broken before we arrived. We use the passive voice for several important reasons. First, when the agent, the person doing the action, is unknown, unimportant, or obvious. My bag was stolen. We do not know who stole it. The windows are cleaned every week. Who cleans them is unimportant. Second, to focus on the result rather than the performer. The Eiffel Tower was built in 1889. We focus on the construction, not on who did it. Third, informal, scientific, and professional writing where an impersonal, objective tone is preferred. The data was collected over a period of 6 months. The results were analyzed using standard methods. When we want to mention the agent, we use by. The theory of relativity was developed by Einstein. The novel was written by a famous Irish author. The song was performed by thousands of people. Passive voice is not a weakness. It is a tool, and using it appropriately demonstrates maturity and control of the language. Reported speech. When we report what someone said, we shift the words into reported speech. The tense usually moves back one step into the past. Direct speech. She said, "I am tired." Reported speech. She said that she was tired. The verb am shifts back to was. Here are the common tense shifts. Present simple becomes past simple. He said, "I work in a bank." He said that he worked in a bank. Present continuous becomes past continuous. She said, "I am cooking dinner." She said that she was cooking dinner. Present perfect becomes past perfect. They said, "We have finished." They said that they had finished. Past simple usually becomes past perfect. He said, "I called you yesterday." He said that he had called me the day before. Future with will becomes would. She said, "I will come." She said that she would come. Modal verbs also shift. Can becomes could. Must becomes had to. May becomes might. Will becomes would. Time expressions also change in reported speech. Now becomes then. Today becomes that day. Yesterday becomes the day before. Tomorrow becomes the next day or the following day. Here becomes there. This becomes that. These become those. He said, "I will meet you here tomorrow." He said that he would meet me there the following day. For questions in reported speech, we use if or whether for yes, no questions, and the question word for WH questions. She asked, "Are you ready?" She asked, "If I was ready." She asked, "Whether I was ready." He asked, "Where do you live?" He asked, "Where I lived." Notice that in reported questions, the word order is no longer inverted. We do not say, "She asked, where did I live?" We say, "She asked, where I lived." This is a very common error that learners make. For commands, we use the infinitive. He said, "Sit down." He told me to sit down. She said, "Don't touch that." She told me not to touch that. Relative clauses defining and non-defining. A relative clause adds information about a noun. It comes after the noun it describes. A defining relative clause tells us which person or thing we are talking about. Without it, the sentence would be unclear or incomplete. The man who called you is my brother. Which man? The one who called you. The relative clause defines which man we mean. The book that I recommended is now out of stock. Which book? The one I recommended. We use who for people, that or which for things, whose for possession. In defining relative clauses, we can leave out who or that when they are the object of the clause. The film that I watched last night was brilliant. Can become. The film I watched last night was brilliant. The pronoun that is omitted because it is the object. A non-defining relative clause adds extra information about a noun that is already clearly identified. If you remove it, the meaning of the main sentence does not change. These clauses are separated by commas. Unquote. My brother, who lives in London, is visiting next week. My brother is already identified. The relative clause just adds extra information. The Eiffel Tower, which was built in 1889, receives millions of visitors every year. In non-defining relative clauses, we always use who for people and which for things. We never use that in non-defining clauses. My best friend that lives in Toronto is coming to visit. Incorrect. My best friend who lives in Toronto is coming to visit. Correct. That completes part 4. At B2, you are using the language with sophistication. You understand the passive voice, reported speech, complex conditionals, and relative clauses. You are making real choices in grammar, not just following rules. Part 5. C1. Advanced Fluency. At C1, the grammar you know becomes fluid and integrated. You use structures not because you have memorized a rule, but because you have internalized the patterns through deep exposure and practice. This level is about nuance, emphasis, and the kind of precision that distinguishes skilled communicators from merely competent ones. Inversion for emphasis. One of the most striking features of advanced English is inversion. In a normal sentence, the subject comes before the verb. Inversion reverses this order to create emphasis, formality, or dramatic effect. The most common type of inversion uses negative or restrictive adverbs at the beginning of a sentence. Never have I seen such a beautiful sunset. Normal word order would be, I have never seen. By moving never to the front and inverting the subject and auxiliary, we create strong emphasis. Rarely does she arrive on time. Normal order would be, she rarely arrives on time. Seldom had I felt so welcome. Hardly had she sat down when the phone rang. No sooner had he left than the rain began. Notice the pattern. The negative adverb comes first, then the auxiliary verb, then the subject, then the main verb. Other adverbs and phrases that trigger inversion include not only, not until, little, only then, only after, only when, and under no circumstances. Not only did he forget his wallet, but he also forgot his keys. Only after the meeting did she realize the mistake. Under no circumstances should you open that door. Inversion also appears after so and such in certain formal structures. So beautiful was the painting that it brought tears to her eyes. Such was the demand for tickets that the event sold out in minutes. Inversion is used in formal speech, academic writing, literature, and journalism. It signals a high level of linguistic sophistication. Using it correctly, in context, immediately elevates your English. Cleft sentences. Cleft sentences are another advanced tool for emphasis. They split a sentence into two clauses to put focus on one particular element. The two main types are it cleft sentences and WH cleft sentences. In an it cleft, we use the structure it plus the verb to be plus the focused element plus a relative clause. Normal sentence. John broke the window. It cleft. It was John who broke the window. The emphasis is now on John, not on the breaking. Normal sentence. She met him in Paris. It cleft. It was in Paris that she met him. The emphasis is now on the location. Normal sentence. They fired her because of her attitude. It cleft. It was because of her attitude that they fired her. It, as. The emphasis is on the reason. It. The WH cleft uses what plus clause plus to be plus focused element. What I need is more time. What she wants is recognition. What surprised him was her confidence. What matters most is honesty. This structure is extremely common in natural speech and writing, especially when explaining or clarifying something. What you need to understand is that these structures are choices, not requirements. You choose them when you want to direct the listener's attention to a specific part of your message. The subjunctive mood. The subjunctive is a verb form used to express hypothetical situations, wishes, demands, and certain formal expressions. Many learners at this level are surprised to discover that English has a subjunctive mood. The present subjunctive is the same as the base form of the verb for all persons. This means that with third-person singular subjects, there is no S ending. The company requires that each employee complete the training. Formal requirement. The form is complete, not completes. I suggest that she take a break. The form is take, not takes. It is essential that he attend the meeting. The form is attend, not attends. The present subjunctive is used in formal registers after verbs of suggestion, recommendation, demand, request, and requirement. Verbs like suggest, recommend, demand, insist, require, request, propose, and urge. It is also used in fixed expressions. God save the Queen, be that as it may, come what may, suffice it to say, far be it from me to criticize. The past subjunctive, which uses were for all persons, appears in hypothetical and conditional contexts. If I were you, I would reconsider. I wish she were here with us. It is time they were honest about the situation. She acts as if she were the only one who matters. In American English, the subjunctive is used more widely and more consistently than in British English, where the indicative is sometimes used in informal speech. But in formal writing in both varieties, the subjunctive is important. Advanced modal verbs must have, could have, should have, might have. At C1, modal verbs combine with the perfect infinitive to create sophisticated expressions about the past. Must have is used for a logical deduction about a past situation. We did not observe it directly, but we infer it. She must have been exhausted. The logic tells me this. He must have forgotten. That is the only explanation. They must have left already. The door is locked. Could have expresses a possibility in the past that did not happen, or a suggestion about the past. You could have called me. You had the ability, but did not use it. She could have won. The potential was there, but was not realized. Should have expresses that something was the right thing to do, but did not happen. It is often used for regret or criticism. You should have told me earlier. I wish you had. He should have apologized. He ought to have done it. Might have expresses a past possibility that we are uncertain about. She might have misunderstood. It is possible, but we are not sure. They might have taken a different route. Would have is used for the result clause in third conditional and mixed conditional sentences. If I had known, I would have helped. I would have come, but I was busy. These structures are among the most sophisticated in English and are essential for discussing the past with nuance. Discourse. Markers for cohesion. A C1 speaker knows how to organize their speech and writing with sophisticated connective language. These are called discourse markers or cohesive devices. To add information, we use furthermore, moreover, in addition, what is more, and not only that. To contrast, we use, however, Nevertheless, nonetheless, on the other hand, despite this, even so, and in spite of. To give a reason, we use as a result, consequently, therefore, hence, thus, and for this reason. To concede a point before making your own, we use admittedly, granted that. It is true that, while it may be the case that, and even though. To summarize, we use in conclusion, to sum up, in short, in brief, and overall. To clarify, we use, in other words, to put it differently, that is to say, and what I mean is. To exemplify, we use, for instance, for example, such as, namely, as, illustrated by, and, a case in point. Using these markers correctly gives your English the flow and logic of a native writer or speaker. They show the listener or reader exactly how your ideas connect. They are not decorative. They are structural. Complex passives and impersonal structures. At C1, passive voice becomes more sophisticated through impersonal structures. These are especially important in academic writing and journalism. The impersonal passive with reporting verbs. It is said that English is a global language. It is believed that the universe is expanding. It is thought that the painting dates from the 17th century. It is alleged that the company broke the law. It is claimed that the new treatment is highly effective. These structures are used to report information without attributing it to a specific source or to give it a sense of general knowledge. The second type uses infinitive constructions. English is said to be a global language. The universe is believed to be expanding. The painting is thought to date from the 17th century. This second type is equally common and is used in the same contexts. We also use there is said to be, there is thought to be, and there is believed to be. There is thought to be a significant connection between sleep and memory. There is said to be a hidden room in the castle. These structures give an impersonal, authoritative tone to writing and formal speech. Ellipsis, substitution, and reference. Advanced speakers use language efficiently. They avoid unnecessary repetition through ellipsis, substitution, and reference. Ellipsis is the omission of words that are clear from the context. She can play the piano, and he can too. The full version would be he can play the piano too, but the verb phrase is omitted because it is understood. A. Are you coming? B. I hope so. The full response would be I hope I am coming, but we omit the repeated part. I would have told you if I could have. The full form would be if I could have told you. Substitution replaces a whole clause with a shorter expression. A. Is he angry? B. I think so. So, substitutes for the entire clause, he is angry. A. It will not work. B. I am afraid not. Not substitutes for the idea of the whole clause. Reference uses words like it, they, one, this, that, these, those, the former, the latter, and the same to refer back to previously mentioned ideas. The report was detailed and accurate. It took 3 weeks to write. The city of Istanbul straddles 2 continents. This makes it unique among major cities. Professor Chen and Dr. Okonkwo gave excellent talks. The former spoke about neuroscience, and the latter addressed public health. Mastering these devices makes your English sound natural, cohesive, and sophisticated. That completes Part 5. You are now at the C1 level. You use inversion, cleft sentences, the subjunctive, complex modals, and cohesive devices. Your English is no longer just correct. It is expressive and precise. Part 6. C2. Native Level Mastery. C2 is the summit. At this level, the goal is no longer to avoid errors. The goal is elegance, precision, and full command of register and style. You have complete fluency across all contexts, from informal conversation to formal academic prose, from creative writing to professional negotiation. Nuanced tense usage. At C2, you use tenses not just correctly, but with artistry. You understand the subtle differences in meaning and effect that different tense choices produce. Consider the difference between these sentences. I have worked here for 10 years. Present perfect. The connection to now is important. I have been working here for 10 years. Present perfect continuous. Emphasis on the ongoing process and duration. The present perfect continuous often carries a sense of recency, effort, or involvement that the simple form does not. She has written 3 novels. We focus on the achievement. She has been writing her 4th novel. We focus on the ongoing activity. The past simple versus the past continuous also produces subtle effects. She wore a red dress. Simple description of fact. She was wearing a red dress. This typically implies she was in the middle of wearing it when something else happened. Or it creates a more vivid, cinematic image. Good writers choose between these forms deliberately for stylistic effect. The future perfect and future perfect continuous are used at C2 with natural ease. By the time you read this, I will have left the country. By then, I will have been living here for exactly 20 years. These forms appear frequently in sophisticated formal writing and high-level academic contexts. Hedging language. One of the hallmarks of C2 English is knowing how to express uncertainty, qualification, and tentativeness in a sophisticated way. This is called hedging. Hedging language is used in academic writing, professional communication, and diplomatic speech. It signals that a claim is not absolute, that there may be exceptions, or that the speaker is cautious. Common hedges include tend to, appear to, seem to, would suggest, may indicate, might imply, and could be considered. The results tend to support the hypothesis. Appears to suggests without stating absolutely. The data would suggest a significant correlation. May indicate that further research is needed. Other hedges use modal verbs and phrases. It could be argued that the policy has had unintended consequences. It may be that the original assumption was incorrect. There is reason to believe that the situation is more complex than it appears. Adverbs like arguably, apparently, seemingly, presumably, and relatively are used as hedges. This is arguably the most important development in recent years. Presumably, the decision was made on financial grounds. Relatively speaking, the risks are manageable. At C2, you know when to hedge and when to be direct. Overhedging makes writing seem timid. Underhedging makes it seem overconfident. Finding the right balance is a skill that comes with deep familiarity with the language. Nominalization. Nominalization is the process of turning verbs or adjectives into nouns. It is a key feature of formal and academic English. The verb decide becomes the noun decision. The verb conclude becomes conclusion. The verb require becomes requirement. The verb achieve becomes achievement. The verb apply becomes application. The adjective important becomes importance. The adjective free becomes freedom. The adjective happy becomes happiness. The adjective different becomes difference. Compare these two sentences. We need to decide quickly if we are going to apply for the funding successfully. Informal, conversational. Quick decision-making is essential to the successful application for funding. Formal, nominalized. The second sentence sounds more formal, more objective, and more typical of written, academic, or professional language. Nominalization often makes sentences more concise. However, overusing it can make writing sound abstract and impersonal. The skill is knowing when nominalization serves your purpose and when a more active verbal style is more appropriate and effective. Complex noun phrases. At C2, you can construct and understand noun phrases of considerable complexity. A complex noun phrase contains multiple modifiers, both before and after the noun. Pre-modifiers appear before the noun. They include articles, determiners, possessives, adjectives, and other nouns used as modifiers. A highly sophisticated, computer-generated financial risk analysis model. Post-modifiers appear after the noun. They include prepositional phrases, relative clauses, participle phrases, and infinitive phrases. The recommendation provided by the independent committee of experts, established under the terms of the original agreement. These long noun phrases are characteristic of legal, technical, and academic writing. They pack information densely into a single noun unit rather than spreading it across multiple sentences. The ability to parse these complex structures, to identify the head noun and all its modifiers, is essential for reading and producing sophisticated English at the C2 level. Concessive clauses and contrast structures. At C2, you use a wide range of structures to express contrast and concession. These go far beyond the simple but and although of lower levels. Despite the fact that she had studied for months, she felt unprepared. Although, while, even though, and whereas are used for contrast. However much you study, you will never master a language without speaking it. This uses however plus adjective or adverb to mean no matter how much. Whatever he does, he cannot seem to please her. Whatever, whoever, whenever, wherever, and however can be used in concessive clauses. Notwithstanding the evidence to the contrary, the committee maintained its original position. Notwithstanding is a formal preposition meaning despite. For all his intelligence, he lacked practical wisdom. This is a literary concessive structure. Be that as it may, we must proceed with the original plan. This fixed subjunctive expression is used to concede a point while insisting on moving forward. These structures are used to acknowledge complexity, to show that you understand there are counter-arguments or exceptions while still making your main point with conviction. Register and style. Perhaps the most sophisticated dimension of C2 English is complete command of register. Register is the level of formality appropriate to a given context. The same idea can be expressed in many different registers. Very informal. I'm going to call you later. Okay? Informal. I'll give you a call later. Neutral. I will contact you later. Semi-formal. I will be in touch with you shortly. Formal. I shall endeavor to contact you at the earliest opportunity. Very formal or archaic. A C2 speaker moves effortlessly between these registers. They write a formal complaint with precision and authority. They chat with friends using natural, relaxed idioms. They present at a conference using polished academic language. They negotiate in a professional setting with measured, diplomatic language. This is not about being different people. It is about having the full range of the language at your disposal and knowing when each register is appropriate and effective. Sophisticated error awareness. At C2, the goal shifts from avoiding errors to understanding the subtlety of choices that might look like errors but are in fact stylistic decisions. Some apparent errors are actually valid alternatives with different tones, ending a sentence with a preposition. This is the person I was talking to, perfectly natural in speech. Splitting an infinitive. To boldly go. This is often deliberate for rhythm and emphasis. Other things that seem correct can still be errors of register or logic. Being verbose when brevity would be more powerful. Using passive voice so extensively that the writing loses energy. Nominalising every verb until the prose becomes abstract and lifeless. A C2 speaker proofreads not just for correctness, but for effectiveness. They ask, not only is this grammatically right, but is this the best way to express this idea in this context for this audience? They understand the difference between prescriptive grammar, the rules as taught, and descriptive grammar, how the language is actually used. They know which rules are firm and which have flexibility. They use this knowledge to make intentional choices. Advanced punctuation and sentence architecture. At C2, punctuation is not just mechanical. It shapes meaning and rhythm. The semicolon connects two independent clauses that are closely related in meaning. She was exhausted. She kept going anyway. The colon introduces what follows. There is one thing you must remember. Consistency is everything. The M dash creates emphasis or signals a parenthetical aside. This discovery, long overdue, finally confirmed what many had suspected, namely, that the theory was incomplete. Parentheses mark additional, optional information. The report, which took 3 months to compile, was delivered well within the deadline. Commas with non-defining relative clauses. My sister, who is a doctor, lives in Edinburgh. Ellipsis marks suggest a trailing thought, a hesitation, or the omission of quoted text. He opened his mouth, and then nothing. The way sentences are structured, their rhythm, their length, their punctuation is part of advanced English competence. Short sentences hit hard. A series of longer, more complex sentences builds a sense of accumulation, of layers of meaning being added one upon the other, until the full weight of an idea is felt. This is the architecture of language. And at C2, you are not just following blueprints. You are an architect. The final word. You have traveled a long road today. You started with the simplest question in English. Is she here? You end with the ability to write and speak with precision, elegance, and complete command across every register and context. But here is the truth that every great language learner eventually understands. Grammar is not the destination. Grammar is the vehicle. The destination is connection. The destination is expression. The destination is the ability to say exactly what you mean in English, in any situation, to any audience, with confidence and clarity. No grammar course in the world is enough on its own. It must be combined with real reading, with listening to authentic English speech, with writing every day, with speaking even when it is imperfect, even when you make mistakes. Because mistakes are not the opposite of learning. Mistakes are how learning happens. Take what you have learned today and use it. Start at the level where you feel most comfortable. Return to the parts that challenged you. Share what you have understood with someone else. Teaching is the deepest form of learning. The English language is one of the great tools of human connection. Today, you have a much sharper, much stronger version of that tool in your hands. Use it well, keep learning, and never, never stop speaking. Thank you for being part of the Speaking Reset. Deep Dive, a one extension, the verb to have, and daily life language. One of the things that separates a learner who survives in English from one who truly connects is the ability to talk about daily life. Life has routines. Life has objects. Life has feelings. At the A1 level, you need language for all of this. Let us go deeper into the verb to have and how it creates meaning across a vast range of everyday contexts. She has long hair. He has blue eyes. They have a large apartment. The restaurant has a garden. I have a headache. We have a meeting at noon. Notice how have expresses many different types of possession and relation. It is not only about ownership. It can describe physical characteristics, health conditions, scheduled events, and relationships. When we use have with illnesses and pain, we say, I have a cold, I have a fever, I have a toothache, I have a sore throat, I have a backache. When we use have with meals, we say, I have breakfast at 7, she has lunch at 1. They have dinner together every Friday. When we use have with experiences and activities, we say we had a great time, they had an argument, she had a dream, he had an accident, we have a conversation. Have is also used in many fixed expressions that do not mean ownership at all but are simply idiomatic phrases. Have a shower, have a bath, have a nap, have a look, have a rest, have a try. have a go, have a think. In British English, these have expressions are particularly common. In American English, you will more often hear take a shower, take a bath, take a nap, take a look. But in both varieties, have is used this way, and understanding it is essential. Deep dive. A. 1. Extension. Imperatives and instructions. Imperative sentences give commands, instructions, requests, directions, and offers. They are essential at the A1 level because they appear everywhere. In recipes, in instructions, on signs, in conversations. The imperative uses the base form of the verb without any subject. The subject is understood to be you. Sit down, stand up, come here, listen carefully, open your book, write your name, turn left at the traffic lights, take the second road on the right, press the button, and wait. For negative imperatives, we add do not or don't before the base verb. Don't worry, don't be late, do not enter, don't touch anything, don't forget your passport. For polite imperatives, we add please either at the beginning or the end. Please sit down. Come in, please. Could you please open the window? We can also soften an imperative by adding do at the beginning. Do be careful. Do come in. Do let me know if you have any questions. These softened forms are more common in British English and add a warm, encouraging tone. Imperatives are also used for offers in informal speech. Have some tea. Take a seat. Help yourself to some food. Deep dive. A 1 extension. There is and there are. One of the most frequently used structures in English at all levels is there is and there are. It introduces the existence of something. There is a pen on the desk. There are 3 students in the class. There is a problem with the plan. There are many reasons to learn English. The choice between there is and there are depends on the noun that follows. If the noun is singular or uncountable, we use there is. If the noun is plural, we use there are. There is some water in the glass. Water is uncountable. There are some bottles on the table. Bottles are countable, plural. For questions, we invert the verb and the word there. Is there a hospital near here? Are there any seats available? Is there anything I can do? Or. For negatives, we use there is not or there are not. There is no parking on this street. There are no seats left. There isn't enough time. There aren't many options. The phrase there is contracted too. There's in informal speech. There's a good restaurant around the corner. But there are does not have a contracted form in standard usage. We do not say there are a lot of people, though you may hear this informally. There is and there are not the same as the word here. Here refers to a location. There is and there are introduce existence. This is an important distinction that beginners sometimes confuse. Deep dive. A 2 extension phrasal verbs at a 2 level. Phrasal verbs are combinations of a verb and 1 or more particles, a preposition or adverb, that together create a meaning different from the individual words alone. They are one of the most challenging, but also one of the most rewarding aspects of English. At the A2 level, the most important phrasal verbs to know are the ones you will encounter in daily conversation. Get up means to rise from bed. I get up at 6 every morning. Wake up means to stop sleeping. She woke up very late on Sunday. Put on means to dress yourself in something. Put on your coat. It's cold outside. Take off means to remove clothing. Take off your shoes at the door. It also means for an aircraft to leave the ground. The plane took off on time. Turn on means to start a machine or light. Turn on the television. Turn on the lights. Turn off means to stop a machine or light. Turn off the radio. Turn off your phone in the cinema. Look for means to search for something. I'm looking for my keys. Have you seen them? Look at means to direct your eyes at something. Look at that beautiful bird. Look after means to take care of something or someone. She looks after her elderly mother. Can you look after my cat while I'm away? Come back means to return. He came back from his trip yesterday. Go back means to return to a place. I need to go back to the office. I forgot my phone. Give up means to stop trying. Don't give up. You can do this. Find out means to discover information. I need to find out what time the train leaves. Write down means to record in writing. Write down the address before you forget. Carry on or go on means to continue. Carry on with your work. Don't stop. Set up means to establish or arrange. They set up a new business last year. At A2, the most important thing is to learn these phrasal verbs as whole expressions, not to try to guess their meaning from the individual words. Put together, these words create meanings that the individual parts do not suggest. Deep dive. B, 1 extension, conditionals, 0 and mixed. We introduced the first conditional at B1. Now let us go back and add the 0 conditional and deepen our understanding of all conditional types. The 0 conditional is used for scientific facts, general truths, and things that always happen when a condition is met. It describes situations where the outcome is certain, not hypothetical. The structure is if plus present simple, present simple. If you heat water to 100 degrees Celsius, it boils. This is a scientific fact. It always happens. If it rains, the streets get wet. This is always true. If you mix red and blue, you get purple. The 0 conditional can also use when instead of if. When you heat water to 100 degrees, it boils. When means whenever. Every time this happens, this is the result. The difference between the 0 conditional and the first conditional is certainty. In the 0 conditional, the result is guaranteed. In the first conditional, the result is possible or probable, but not certain. 0 conditional. If you put food in the freezer, it freezes. Always true. First conditional. If I put my application in today, I will hear back within a week. Possible, but not certain. Deep dive. B1. Extension. Expressing wishes and regrets. At B1, we begin to express wishes and regrets about present, past, and future situations. These structures use, were, and had, and would in ways that connect directly to conditional grammar. To wish about a present situation we want to be different, we use I wish or if only plus the past simple. I wish I had more time. I do not have more time now. I wish it were summer. It is not summer now. If only she lived closer. She does not live close. If only I could speak better English. Notice again that with to be in wish sentences, we prefer were for all persons, not was, in formal and written English. To wish about a past situation, something that happened and cannot be changed, we use I wish plus the past perfect. I wish I had studied harder. I did not study hard, and I regret it. I wish she had told me the truth. She did not, and I regret that. If only I had taken that opportunity. I did not take it. I regret it now. To wish about a future situation or a repeated habit we find annoying, we use I wish plus would. I wish you would stop doing that. I am annoyed by this repeated behavior. I wish it would stop raining. I want a change in the ongoing situation. Notice that I wish I would is not normally used. We use I wish I could instead. I wish I could help. I wish I could afford it. Deep dive. B2. Extension Advanced Reported Speech. Reported speech at B2 goes beyond simple backshift of tenses. It includes complex reporting verbs, nuanced constructions for questions and suggestions, and the understanding of when backshift can be avoided. Backshift is not always mandatory. When the original words are still true, or when we are reporting something very recently said, we can sometimes keep the original tense. She says she is tired If she just said this and it is still true, we can report it in the present tense. He told me he lives in Paris. If he still lives in Paris, we do not need to change to lived. However, in formal writing and in examinations, backshift is expected. Reporting verbs add nuance to what is being reported. They tell us the manner or purpose of what was said. Admit. She admitted that she had made a mistake. Claim. He claimed that he had never been to the city. Deny. They denied taking the money. Explain. She explained that the system had been updated. Warn. He warned me not to go near the edge. Suggest. She suggested going for a walk. Recommend. He recommended that she take the course. Promise. She promised to call me later. Refuse. He refused to answer the question. Offer. She offered to help with a project. Insist. He insisted that I stay for dinner. Agree. They agreed to meet the following week. Threaten. He threatened to report the matter to the authorities. Remind. She reminded me to bring my passport. Beg. He begged me not to leave. Encourage. The teacher encouraged her students to keep practicing. To send. Goes. Urge. The doctor urged him to reduce his stress levels. Each of these verbs carries its own grammatical pattern. Some take the to infinitive. Some take the gerund. Some take a, that clause. Some take the gerund or infinitive, depending on meaning. Learning each verb with its grammatical complement is a task that builds rich, precise language. Deep Dive, B2, Extension Participle Clauses. Participle clauses are a sophisticated alternative to relative clauses and full subordinate clauses. They make writing more concise and more elegant. A present participle clause using the verb plus ing can replace an active relative clause or a clause of simultaneous action. The woman who is standing by the window is my colleague becomes the woman standing by the window is my colleague. As she walked to the station, she noticed the shop was closed. Becomes walking to the station, she noticed the shop was closed. Since he did not know anyone at the party, he felt lonely. Becomes not knowing anyone at the party, he felt lonely. A past participle clause, using the past participle form, can replace a passive relative clause or a clause of completed prior action. The report that was written by the committee was very thorough. Becomes the report written by the committee was very thorough. Because she was exhausted by the journey, she went straight to bed. Becomes exhausted by the journey, she went straight to bed. After the problem had been identified, the team worked quickly to fix it. Becomes once identified, the team worked quickly to fix the problem. Participle clauses are common in formal writing, journalism, and academic English. They compress information and create a flowing, sophisticated style. However, they must be used carefully. The subject of the participle clause must be the same as the subject of the main clause. Otherwise, you create what is called a dangling participle, a common error. Incorrect. Walking to work, the rain started to fall. The rain did not walk to work. Someone else did. Correct. Walking to work, I noticed the rain starting to fall. Deep Dive, C1, Extension Fronting and Topicalization. Fronting is a stylistic device where an element that would normally appear later in the sentence is moved to the front for emphasis or contrast. This is closely related to inversion, but broader in scope. Any part of a sentence can be fronted: the object, an adverbial phrase, a complement, a clause. Object fronting. This book I have read 3 times. The normal order would be, I have read this book 3 times. By fronting the book, we emphasize that this book in particular holds special significance. Adverbial fronting. In the corner of the room stood a grand old piano. Normal order. A grand old piano stood in the corner of the room. The fronted version creates a more literary, dramatic effect. Into the room walked a stranger. Out of the bag fell everything she had been hiding. Complement fronting. Strange as it may seem, I have grown to love this city. Tired though he was, he continued working. Difficult as this decision is, it cannot be delayed. These fronted structures can be found in literary prose, formal speeches, and persuasive writing. They signal stylistic command and control of the language. Topicalization specifically refers to fronting the topic of a sentence to create emphasis and link it to what was said before. The concept of time is fascinating. This concept, philosophers have debated for thousands of years. The second sentence topics, the concept, linking back to what was just mentioned and emphasizing it. Deep dive. C1. Extension complex. Sentence. Architecture. At C1 and above, the complexity of sentences increases significantly. Understanding how subordination, coordination, and embedding work together is essential for producing and parsing sophisticated text. Embedded clauses appear inside another clause. They function as nouns, subjects, or objects. What he said surprised everyone. The embedded clause, what he said, functions as the subject. She believed that what he said was true. Embedded clause inside A. That clause inside the main clause. Multiple levels of embedding. The report that the committee, which had been appointed by the minister, prepared in response to the crisis that occurred the previous year, contained several surprising recommendations. This sentence has layers of embedded relative clauses. Parsing it requires identifying the main clause. The report contained several surprising recommendations and recognizing each embedded clause as a modifier. Advanced English readers and writers move through such structures fluidly. Developing this skill requires extensive reading of sophisticated texts, whether academic papers, literary fiction, quality journalism, or professional reports. The architecture of long sentences in formal English typically follows a pattern: main clause with extensive modification. The modifications attach to nouns, verbs, and adjectives throughout the sentence, adding layers of meaning without losing the main thread. The ability to write such sentences and to read them with full comprehension is one of the defining characteristics of C1 and C2 level English. Deep dive. C2. Extension stylistics and the art of expression. At C2, grammar becomes indistinguishable from style. The choices you make about syntax, diction, rhythm, and structure are as much artistic choices as grammatical ones. Consider the effect of sentence length variation. She waited. The corridor was silent. Nobody came. 3 short sentences. Each one hits independently. The effect is stark, tense, controlled. Now contrast that with this. As the minutes stretched into what felt like hours, and as the silence in the corridor deepened from a mere absence of sound into something almost physical, something that pressed against her ears and her chest and the back of her eyes, she continued to wait, certain by now that nobody was coming, that she was completely alone, that the decision she had made could not be undone. One long sentence, built from subordination and accumulation. The effect is immersive, overwhelming. The grammar mirrors the emotional experience of waiting. A C2 speaker and writer uses both. They know that the short sentence after a long one hits with amplified force. They know that the long sentence can carry the reader on a wave of thought. They balance these effects deliberately. Parallelism at the C2 level is used not just for correctness, but for rhetorical power. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender. The repeated structure creates rhythm, momentum, and emotional force. This is grammar in the service of persuasion. Anaphora, the repetition of a phrase at the beginning of successive clauses, is one of the most powerful rhetorical devices in English. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day. These are grammatical patterns, yes, but they are also music. At C2, you understand grammar not just as a system of rules, but as a system of possibilities. Every choice is intentional. Every structure serves a purpose. The language is not a cage. It is an instrument. And at this level, you play it fluently. The final reflection, the journey through English grammar. We have covered an enormous amount of ground today. Let us take a moment to look back at the full landscape. At a 1, you learned the absolute foundation, the verb to be, articles, nouns, pronouns, the present simple tense, basic adjectives and adverbs, question words, numbers, and time. At A2, you built on that foundation with the past simple and future tenses, prepositions, conjunctions, comparatives, and superlatives, modal verbs, possessives. At B1, you gained real confidence with the present perfect, the past continuous, the future continuous, expanded modal verbs, the first conditional, gerunds and infinitives, and question tags. At B2, you moved into thinking in English with the present perfect continuous, the past perfect, second and third conditionals, mixed conditionals, passive voice, reported speech, and relative clauses. At C1, your grammar became fluid and precise, with inversion, cleft sentences, the subjunctive, advanced modals, discourse markers, complex passives, and ellipsis. At C2, grammar became art. Nuanced tense use, hedging language, nominalization, complex noun phrases, concessive structures, register mastery, and stylistics. This is the full journey, and every step of the way, the grammar was not an end in itself. It was a tool for saying something, for reaching someone, for making your thoughts visible and your feelings heard. English is a living language. It grows, it changes, it adapts. It absorbs words and structures from hundreds of other languages and cultures. Learning it is not a task with a fixed end date. It is a lifelong relationship. And the most important thing you can do at every level is to use it. Speak even when your grammar is imperfect. Write even when your vocabulary feels small. Listen more than you speak. Read more than you listen. And always, always keep going. Because the person who keeps going, even slowly, even imperfectly, will always go further than the person who waits until they are ready. You are already ready. You always were. Welcome to the Speaking Reset. This is where your fluency begins. Scripteov. Echo, character count. WC, home, Claude, grammar, course, script.txt. Echo word count. WC, home, Claude, grammar, course, script.txt. Deep dive, a 2 extension, talking about ability, permission, and obligation. At the A2 level, one of the most practical skills you can develop is talking about what you can and cannot do, what you are and are not allowed to do, and what you must or must not do. This falls under the category of expressing ability, permission, and obligation. And the key language for this is modal verbs. We have already introduced can, could, should, and must. Now let us deepen each one with richer context and more example sentences. Can is the most versatile modal at this level. It expresses ability in the present. I can swim, but I cannot ride a bicycle. She can speak 3 languages fluently. Can you help me carry these bags? Can also expresses permission. Can I sit here? Can we leave early today? You can use my phone if you need to. When we want to say that something is impossible, not allowed, or not possible, we use cannot, usually contracted to can't. You can't park here. The sign says so. She can't come tonight. She has other plans. Could is the past form of can when expressing past ability. When he was young, he could run for miles without stopping. Before the accident, she could play the piano beautifully. Could also expresses polite requests, which is one of the most important social functions of English at this level. Could you open the door for me? Could you explain that again, please? Could I have the bill, please? May expresses formal permission. May I come in? May I ask you a question? Yes, you may. These forms sound more formal than can. In an exam, a classroom, or a professional environment, may is more appropriate. Must expresses strong necessity. You must show your passport at the border. Students must not use phones during the examination. I must remember to call my mother. Have to is used for obligations that come from outside the speaker, from rules, laws, or other people's requirements. You have to wear a helmet when you ride a motorcycle. She has to finish the report by Friday. Her manager told her so. I have to take my medicine twice a day, the doctor told me. Need to is softer than must or have to. I need to buy some milk. We need to leave soon or we'll be late. Deep dive, B, 1 extension, the passive voice introduction. Although we cover the passive voice in depth at B2, learners at B1 need to have a working understanding of the present simple passive and the past simple passive, because these two forms appear very frequently in everyday English. The present simple passive describes things that are regularly or generally done to a subject. English is taught in schools all over the world. Cheese is made from milk. Cars are manufactured in many countries. This office is cleaned every evening. The rubbish is collected on Tuesdays. Notice that in all of these sentences, the focus is on the thing or person that receives the action, not on the person doing the action. Who teaches English, who makes cheese, who manufactures cars, is not important to the message. What matters is the thing itself and what happens to it. The past simple passive describes things that were done to a subject at a specific time in the past. The church was built in the 14th century. The email was sent yesterday. All the windows were broken in the storm. The contract was signed last week. In many of these sentences, the agent, the person or thing that performed the action, is either unknown, obvious, or unimportant. We do not say the 14th century workers built the church. We say the church was built in the 14th century. If we want to mention the agent, we add by. The novel was written by a young Irish woman. The decision was made by the committee. The painting was completed by the artist in just 3 days. At B1, focus on recognizing these structures in reading and listening, and on producing them in writing when you want to sound more formal or when the agent is not important. Deep dive, B, 1 extension, expressing purpose, reason, and result. Advanced communication at B1 level involves expressing not just what happens, but why it happens and what results from it. These are the connectives of purpose, reason, and result. To express purpose, the most common structures are in order to, so as to, and so that. She studied hard in order to pass the exam. The purpose of the studying was to pass. I called ahead so as to avoid waiting. I took notes so that I would not forget anything. So that is usually followed by a clause with a modal verb, so that I would not forget, so that she could understand, so that they might arrive in time. The infinitive of purpose, simply using to plus the base verb, is the most common way to express purpose in conversation. I went to the shop to buy some bread. She called to say she was running late. They stayed up late to watch the match. For reason, the main connectives are because, as, and since. Because is the most common. I stayed home because I was sick. She apologized because she had been rude. As and since are more formal and often introduce reasons that are already known or assumed. As the weather was fine, we decided to walk. Since you know the area, perhaps you could recommend a restaurant. For result, the key connectives are so, therefore, consequently, and as a result. I was tired, so I went to bed. Informal. I was tired. Consequently, I went to bed. Formal. The project was delayed. As a result, the launch had to be postponed. So is the most common in spoken English. therefore, and consequently, are much more formal and appear mainly in writing. Deep Dive B2. Extension, emphasis, and intensifiers. At B2, expressing degrees of meaning becomes important. Not all situations are the same intensity, and English has a rich system for expressing this. Intensifiers make an adjective or adverb stronger. Very is the most basic. I am very tired. She is very intelligent. Extremely is stronger than very. I am extremely worried. It was extremely cold. Incredibly is informal, but very common in speech. That is incredibly kind of you. She is incredibly talented. Absolutely is used with extreme or absolute adjectives. Absolute adjectives describe qualities that cannot be measured in degrees, like perfect, impossible, exhausted, furious, freezing, boiling, magnificent. The view was absolutely magnificent. She was absolutely exhausted. The plan is absolutely impossible. We do not say very perfect or very exhausted. These adjectives are already extreme. We say absolutely perfect, absolutely exhausted, totally impossible. Other intensifiers include utterly, completely, entirely, thoroughly, deeply, highly, and profoundly. I am utterly confused. She was completely devastated. He is deeply committed to the project. The proposal is highly controversial. I am thoroughly convinced. Downgraders reduce the strength of an adjective. Fairly and quite are common downgraders. I was fairly satisfied with the results. Not completely, but reasonably. She is quite good at chess. Not exceptional, but decent. Rather suggests something is more than expected and can carry a slightly negative nuance. It was rather expensive. More than I expected or wanted. The journey was rather unpleasant. Somewhat is formal and often used to soften a description. The results were somewhat disappointing. I was somewhat surprised by her reaction. Knowing when to use which intensifier or downgrader is one of the subtle skills that makes B2 English so expressive. Deep Dive, C1, Extension, Academic Writing, Grammar. One of the most important registers at C1 is academic English. Whether you are writing essays, research papers, or professional reports, academic English follows specific grammatical conventions. Academic writing prefers passive constructions over active ones in many contexts. Active. We collected data from 300 participants. Passive. Data were collected from 300 participants. Notice that in academic English, data is often treated as plural. This reflects the Latin origin of the word. Datum is the singular. Data are the plural. In everyday English, data is often treated as singular, but in formal academic contexts, data are is still preferred by many style guides. Academic writing uses hedging language extensively, as we discussed at C1. The results suggest, the findings indicate, it would appear that this may be attributed to. Academic writing also uses impersonal constructions. Rather than saying I think or we believe, academic writers often say it is argued that, it has been suggested that, it can be seen that, or it is widely accepted that. Nominalization is essential in academic writing. Converting verbs and adjectives to nouns creates a more formal, impersonal, and dense style. The government failed to implement the policy effectively becomes the government's failure to implement the policy effectively. Researchers have discovered that the drug reduces inflammation and becomes. The discovery of the drug's anti-inflammatory properties represents a significant advance. Academic writing uses complex prepositional phrases to link ideas in light of the evidence, with regard to the findings, in relation to the hypothesis, with reference to the previous study, on the basis of the available data. These phrases create the texture and formality that distinguishes academic prose from casual writing. Sentence variety in academic writing follows specific patterns. Topic sentences that state the main idea of a paragraph. Supporting sentences that develop and evidence the claim. Concluding sentences that reflect and link forward. At C1, the ability to read and produce academic English in any discipline is a defining skill. Deep dive. C1. Extension, professional and business English grammar. Professional English uses grammar in service of clarity, efficiency, and diplomacy. Making requests professionally. Could you please send me the updated report by Thursday? I would appreciate it if you could clarify this matter at your earliest convenience. Would it be possible to schedule a meeting for next week? These structures use the conditional mood to soften the request. The more important or demanding the request, the more polite and indirect the language tends to be. Expressing disagreement diplomatically. That is an interesting point. However, I am not entirely sure that this is the most effective approach. I take your point, but I would suggest that we consider an alternative. While I appreciate your perspective, I wonder if we might also want to look at this from another angle. This type of language concedes before it disagrees. It acknowledges before it challenges. This is the grammar of professional diplomacy. Presenting information formally, as the data clearly shows, according to the latest projections, based on the results of the analysis, in light of the current situation. With reference to your earlier question, turning now to the second point. These are structural phrases that organize and present information in a professional setting. They are standard in meetings, presentations, reports, and formal emails. Closing formal communications. I look forward to hearing from you. Please do not hesitate to contact me should you require further information. I remain at your disposal. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I trust this is satisfactory. These closing formulas are formulaic by design. Using them correctly signals professional competence. Deep dive. C2. Extension. The grammar of literature. At C2, you can read and appreciate English literature, and you can recognize how writers use grammar to create meaning and effect. Stream of consciousness writing abandons standard punctuation and syntax to represent the flow of thought. She had thought of nothing else all morning, the rain against the window and James in the other room and whether she should call and whether it mattered, and it did matter. Of course it mattered. There are no full stops within this passage. The commas carry everything, the repetition of, and creates an onrushing, breathless quality. This is deliberate grammar in service of a psychological effect. Fragmentation. Short, incomplete sentences that create tension or emphasis. She opened the door. Nothing. Silence. Then a sound. Just one. And then everything changed. Each fragment is an incomplete sentence by strict grammatical definition. But in context, each one is complete as a unit of meaning and effect. Archaic grammar. Some literary and religious texts use older forms of English. Thou art instead of you are. He hath instead of he has. Dost thou know instead of do you know. These forms appear in Shakespeare, the King James Bible, and older literary works. Encountering them requires a recognition of these patterns, even if you do not produce them yourself. Free indirect discourse is a technique in narrative fiction where the narrator's voice merges with a character's thoughts, using third-person pronouns but first-person intimacy. She looked out of the window. What was the point? Everything had been ruined. She would never forgive him. Not after this. The sentences, "what was the point," and "everything had been ruined," are technically the narrator reporting the character's thoughts, but without any quotation marks or attribution. The grammar slips between narrative and interior. This technique requires understanding that grammar can serve perspective as much as it serves correctness. Integrating all levels, how grammar builds on itself. One of the most reassuring things about English grammar is that it is cumulative. Every new structure you learn builds on structures you already know. The past perfect, which we learn at B2, is built from the present perfect structure, which we learn at B1, which is built from the verb to have, which we learn at A1. Had finished is just have finished, with had in the past. She has finished. She had finished. The pattern is identical. Only the choice of have changes to show the time relationship. The passive voice is built from the verb to be plus the past participle. You learn to be at A1. You learn past participles with the present perfect at B1. Put them together, and you have the passive. The book is read. She is finished. The work was done. Simple combinations of familiar elements. Conditionals build on simple tenses. If it rains means if plus present simple. Would go means would plus base verb. These are forms you know. The conditional just puts them in relationship with each other. Complex sentences are built from simple ones. One clause plus another clause. One idea connected to another idea. The connections get richer and more varied as you progress. But the basic logic of joining ideas is something you started doing at A2. Understanding that grammar is cumulative, that it is layered, and that new structures are almost always extensions of familiar ones, makes the whole project of learning feel much more manageable. Every time you learn something new in English grammar, look for what you already know inside it. The familiar shapes are always there, embedded in the new. The philosophy of grammar learning. Let us end this course with something that no textbook ever says directly, but that every fluent speaker knows in their bones. Grammar is not the same as language. Grammar is a description of language. It is the map, not the territory. When a child learns to speak their first language, they do not study grammar. They absorb it. They acquire it through exposure, repetition, feedback, and the deep human need to communicate. They make thousands of errors. And slowly, naturally, the patterns emerge. As an adult learning a second language, you have the advantage of explicit grammar instruction. You can see the patterns laid out clearly, understand the rules, and apply them consciously. This is genuinely useful. But the danger is that you begin to think that language is grammar, that speaking English means applying grammar rules. It does not. Speaking English means having something to say and finding a way to say it. Grammar is the system that emerges when you do enough of that. You internalize it through use. Through speaking, making mistakes, being corrected, trying again, through reading and recognizing patterns, through listening and noticing how phrases fit together. Study grammar? Yes. Understand the rules? Yes. But then put the grammar book down and speak. Write, listen, read, engage with the language. Let the grammar disappear into your fluency. The goal of every rule, every tense, every conditional, every passive, every discourse marker you have learned today is to eventually become invisible, to become so natural that you no longer think about it, to become the way you simply speak. That invisibility is fluency, and fluency is the goal. The speaking reset is not about resetting to zero. It is about releasing everything that has held your English back. Every rule memorized in fear, every sentence left unsaid because you were not sure if it was grammatically correct, and beginning again with the confidence that comes from understanding the system from the inside. You now understand the system, from A1 to C2, from the first sentence to the last. Everything that follows is practice. Go practice. Bonus section: common grammar traps and how to escape them. Every learner at every level has specific grammar traps, patterns that seem clear in theory but that cause confusion in real use. This section addresses the most common ones across all 6 levels. Trap 1: its versus its. This single distinction trips up even native English speakers in writing. It's with an apostrophe is always and only a contraction of it is or it has. It's without an apostrophe is always the possessive form of it. It's raining outside. This means it is raining. It's been a long day. This means it has been a long day. The cat hurt its leg. This is possession. The company lost its market share. Possession. Quick test. Replace the word with it is or it has. If the sentence still makes sense, use the apostrophe. If it does not, use its without an apostrophe. Trap 2. Who versus whom. Who is a subject pronoun? Whom is an object pronoun. Who called you? Who is the subject performing the action of calling? The man who works here is my uncle. Who is the subject of the relative clause? Whom did you call? Whom receives the action? The woman whom I met was fascinating. Whom is the object of the verb met? A quick test. Replace who or whom with he or him. If he sounds right, use who. If him sounds right, use whom. Who called? He called. So who is correct? Whom did you call? You called him. So whom is correct? In informal speech, many native speakers use who in both positions. But in formal writing, the distinction matters. Trap 3. Less versus fewer. Less is used with uncountable nouns, things you cannot count individually. Less water, less time, less money, less traffic, less noise. Fewer is used with countable nouns, things you can count. Fewer students, fewer cars, fewer errors, fewer problems, fewer people. A common error, even in native speaker writing, is using less with countable nouns. 10 items or less on the sign in a supermarket should technically be 10 items or fewer. But this usage is so widespread that many style guides now accept it in informal contexts. Informal writing, maintain the distinction. Fewer for countable, less for uncountable. Trap 4. Effect versus effect. Effect is usually a verb. It means to influence or have an impact on. The cold weather affected her health. Stress can affect your sleep. How does this policy affect ordinary citizens? Effect is usually a noun. It means a result or consequence. The cold weather had an effect on her health. The effects of the policy were felt immediately. Sleep has many positive effects on mood. The confusion arises because effect can occasionally be a verb meaning to bring about or to cause, but this is rare and formal. To effect a change means to bring about a change. To effect a solution means to implement one. In almost every everyday situation, affect is the verb and effect is the noun. Trap 5. Since versus for. Both since and for are used with the present perfect to talk about duration, but they work differently. Since introduces the starting point, it is followed by a point in time. I have lived here since 2015, since March, since I was a child, since the beginning. For introduces the duration itself. It is followed by a period of time. I have lived here for 8 years, for 3 months, for a long time, for the past decade. And a simple test. Can you say how long? Use for. Can you say from when? Use since. I have been waiting for 2 hours. How long? 2 hours. Use for. I have been waiting since noon. From when? Since noon. Use since. Trap 6. Make versus do. English learners often confuse make and do because they both translate as a similar word in many other languages, but they are used with different expressions in English. Make is generally used for creating, constructing, or producing something. Make a cake, make a decision, make a mistake, make a suggestion, make a phone call, make a plan, make progress, make an effort, make an excuse, make money, make a bed. Make friends. Make a mess. Make a difference. Do is generally used for activities, tasks, and actions that do not create a specific product. Do the dishes. Do homework. Do exercise. Do work. Do research. Do business. Do a course. Do someone a favor. Do damage. Do good. Do harm. There are no perfect rules for all cases. These are collocations. They are combinations that English speakers learn together as fixed pairs. The best approach is to learn, make, and do expressions as vocabulary, not to try to apply a single rule that covers every case. Trap 7. Rise versus raise. Rise is an intransitive verb. It does not take an object. The subject rises by itself. The sun rises in the east. Prices are rising. She rose from her chair. The water level has risen dramatically. Raise is a transitive verb. It requires an object. Someone raises something. She raised her hand. He raised the topic in the meeting. The company raised its prices. They are raising money for charity. Rise, rose, risen. No object ever. Raise, raised, raised. Always has an object. Similar pairs to know. Lie and lay. Sit and sat. Fall and fell. Lie means to recline and is intransitive. I lie down. He lay down yesterday. She has lain there for hours. Lay means to place something and is transitive. Lay the book on the table. She laid the baby in the cot. Sit is intransitive. She sits in the corner. Set is transitive. He sets the table every evening. Trap 8. The double negative. In formal English, two negatives make a positive. A double negative is considered a grammatical error in standard written English. Incorrect in standard English. I don't know nothing. This technically means I know something. Correct. I don't know anything. Incorrect. She never said nothing to me. Correct. She never said anything to me. Or, she didn't say anything to me. However, it is important to know that double negatives are a feature of many English dialects and vernacular varieties. They appear in African American vernacular English, in many British regional dialects, and in many other non-standard varieties. In these contexts, they are grammatically systematic and are not errors within those dialects. They are only considered errors when applying standard written English norms. Understanding this distinction helps you appreciate the difference between a grammatical rule of standard English and a feature of a specific variety. Both are valid within their contexts. Trap 9. Dangling and misplaced modifiers. A dangling modifier is a modifying word or phrase that does not clearly or logically relate to the subject of the main clause. Incorrect. Having finished the exam, the room was very quiet. Who finished the exam? The room did not finish the exam. A person did. Correct. Incorrect. Cited. Correct. Having finished the exam, the students found the room very quiet. Incorrect. Running down the street, my hat blew off. My hat was not running. I was. Correct. Running down the street, I felt my hat blow off. A misplaced modifier is a modifier placed too far from the word it describes, causing confusion. Incorrect. She almost drove her children to school every day. This suggests she almost drove them, but usually did not. The modifier, almost, is in the wrong place. Correct. She drove her children to school almost every day. Now, almost modifies every day. Incorrect. He only eats vegetables on Sundays. Does he eat nothing else on Sundays? Or does he only eat vegetables and nothing else on any day? Correct. He eats vegetables only on Sundays. The placement of only makes the meaning clear. These errors are extremely common in both learner and native speaker writing. Proofreading, specifically for modifier placement, is a habit worth developing. Trap 10. Tense consistency. When writing or speaking about a sequence of events, Maintaining consistent tense is essential. Randomly switching between past and present tense disrupts the reader or listener. Inconsistent. She walked into the room and looks around nervously. Then, she notices something on the table and picked it up. Consistent past. She walked into the room and looked around nervously. Then, she noticed something on the table and picked it up. Consistent present. She walks into the room and looks around nervously. Then, she notices something on the table and picks it up. In creative writing, both past and present tense are valid choices for narrating events. But whichever you choose, maintain it throughout. Switch only when there is a deliberate reason, such as moving between a main story in the past and a flashback or commentary in a different tense. In academic writing, use the present tense for general truths and for discussing what an author says or argues. Use the past tense for describing completed research or events. Use the present perfect for connecting past research to current relevance. Smith argues that climate change is the defining challenge of the century present. The researchers conducted their study over 2 years past. Several studies have demonstrated a link between sleep and cognitive performance. Present perfect. Knowing which tense to use in which context is one of the marks of advanced academic writing. These 10 traps are not exhaustive. English has countless subtle points of grammar that can catch even advanced learners off guard, but awareness is the first step. When you know a trap exists, you begin to notice it, to avoid it, and eventually to move past it entirely. Every one of these traps, however frustrating in the moment, is also a doorway to a deeper understanding of how English works and why. The why behind a grammar rule is always more interesting and always more memorable than the rule itself. Keep asking why. The answers are always worth finding.